As and when the perception of an object arises within you, meet it with the understanding, I am not this. Such ignorant perception will immediately cease. In fact, there is nothing to be known in all this. There is need only to get rid of confusion or deluded understanding. What does it mean, I am not this? It's not the actual object we're referring to here. It's the emotion which leads us to conceptualize or to identify that person or object. So if you're walking down the street and you see a pretty girl, what has made you become aware of that pretty girl? Is there some need within you that has brought that pretty girl into your attention? Is that need that we need to look at? You're clearly not the pretty girl, but you are identifying with that need which the pretty girl fulfills. So this is really what we need to be looking at, is the underlying complex of emotions by which we become aware of certain aspects of what is happening around us, because we colour it according to our needs. We need to look at these needs with the understanding, I am not this. These needs are very primitive, they're very basic, and most psychological theories would say that these needs need to be addressed. They need to be fulfilled, they need to be worked out in some way. And perhaps that is the option that has to be pursued, especially if these needs are destructive, either to oneself or to others. Then some kind of psychological support will be necessary. But if we've got some spiritual insight into what things are really like, then we do have this other possibility of going beyond these needs. And the only way to do this is to keep strengthening the insight, to make sure we're further established in this insight that there is actually no individual. The insight that the world appearance is notional. And it's something which has to be practiced vigorously. It's not an idle exercise. Otherwise you're just kidding yourself, and it becomes another ego game, another way of subtly identifying with notions of spirituality. I'm a spiritual person. Everything is blissful. It might be for a while, but that's not the whole picture. Things might be blissful for a while, but usually our primitive basic needs kick in at some point. So we need to be completely established. We need to keep practicing this. And it's only then, if this delusion is not repeatedly revived, it ceases to be. Whatever notion arises in you, even as movement arises in wind, realize that I am not this, and thus deprive it of support. So a notion is based on emotion, and it's that emotion we need to be aware of. It's that emotion that we indulge. It's that emotion that we go along with, that we get hijacked by. These emotions are the emotions of our deepest compulsions. These are what we have to loosen ourselves from. He who has not gained a victory over greed, shame, vanity and delusion derives no benefit by reading this scripture. It is a useless waste of time. So it's not about an intellectual understanding. We need to prize that understanding into our deepest compulsions. Greed. Greed's got so many different forms. It operates on so many different levels, and not just the simple level of material possession. justified usually by material security. But shame and vanity, these are to do with our self-perception. I mentioned the case of Lady Isabel Barnett. Her shame was so great that she killed herself simply because of this very simple compulsion that she had to shoplift. But the vanity is our self-image. Vanity is preening our self-image, and the shame is what arises when something happens to knock that on the head. And delusion's not been aware of this. So there's greed, shame, vanity, delusion. In a previous paragraph there was also lust, anger, greed, etc. There's quite a few lists which have similar factors in it. The defilements, dosha or klesa. But these are the gut feelings which underpin our notions. So it's not just about objects that we give up perceiving, it's the gut compulsions which drive us to form certain notions. This is what we have to get in touch with. The ego sense arises in the self just as movement arises in wind. Hence it is non-different from the self. The ego sense seems to shine on account of the self, which is the reality or the substratum. It's consciousness which is doing this. So it's consciousness which we get in touch with. And what are we? We are consciousness. Turn the consciousness to itself, turn the attention to itself, realize the pure nature of what is happening, and in this way move towards self-realization. The self does not arise at any time, nor does it set. There is nothing other than the self. Hence, how can one say that it is, or that it is not? The Supreme Self is in the Supreme Self, the infinite in the infinite, the peace in peace. That is all there is, neither I, nor the world, nor the mind. So again, this isn't a statement of how things are, this is the process of self-inquiry. We look at the ego sense, we examine it, we inquire into it, we observe it. And in this observation, there is the realization of its nature. It's the infinite in the infinite, no longer the finite in the infinite. The peace in peace. And this is all there is. This is the fundamental self.